MIT releases their report that says that 95% of organizations are not seeing any ROI. I almost feel like AI is this hammer and everyone's just swinging it, right? I think I'm seeing a lot more revealing of dysfunctions across organizations. Number one skill set, the number one super skill for 2031, 5 years from now and beyond, is going to be change fluency. I don't learn and I don't integrate. And if I haven't done any of those two things, of course, I'm not going to see any ROI.
Today I'm talking to Jay Kiew, a change and transformation leader working with organizations adopting AI at scale. Someone who's seen why most AI initiatives fail in the real world. We unpack why AI at work isn't a technology problem, it's a process and change management problem. Stay until the end and you will leave with a completely different way of thinking about how to make AI actually improve your work instead of creating more chaos. Make sure to subscribe and follow on your favorite podcast app and YouTube. If something resonates with you, drop a comment and share your thoughts. I would love to hear your perspective. And now, enjoy the conversation. Hi Jay, welcome to an hour of innovation.
Vit, thank you so much for having me. Really glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad you can make it because I wanted to talk to you about how leaders can use AI as a tool to make their people work better. So that's great.
Yeah. Excited to dig in. Lots of exciting stuff happening in that space, right?
Right. So you spent many years helping organizations with change and uncertainty, and with this wave of AI and it's coming to work every day with us, what do you think some leaders may be misunderstanding about AI at work today?
Gosh, a lot of it comes down to the classic hammer and nail situation, right? Where I almost feel like AI is this hammer and everyone's just swinging it, right? Like we're going to do something with this. We're not really quite sure what. And I do feel like a lot of leaders are maybe spending a little bit less time on very specific nails, right? What are the problems that they're looking to solve? And leading with that first. And then having the question of, okay, if that's the problem that I'm trying to solve, what's the best tool for it? And maybe it's AI. Oftentimes, honestly, a lot of the solution tends to be more automation than anything, which is a little bit more basic and has been around for a long time. And so one thing I do think that AI is doing really well is it's inviting these conversations to happen, right? And because everyone's trying to not be left behind, everyone's now asking, oh, what do we do with all of these AI tools? And I think that's leading to these innovation conversations and accelerating them.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So with all this, with your experience and talking to organizations and leaders, when they try to implement it, do you think AI will clarify more things for them or open some dysfunctions that they have in the organization?
I think I'm seeing a lot more revealing of dysfunctions across organizations, especially as we partner with a lot of companies to deploy AI agents and that sort of thing. And what it's revealing is maybe lack of processes captured, the standard operating procedures, right? I'll ask something like, oh, great that you want to build an HR agent. What would you like it to do? And what are the steps that we're looking at? And there's a bit of this pause to say, well, can it just do everything? And really, that's where the struggle is, right? There isn't a clearly identified process that we want the AI agent to follow, and not even just the AI agent. It goes much beyond building. It actually goes into the interaction conversation. What's the user doing? What's required? What are the dependencies, right? What do we want people to be doing? What's their experience like? And then overlaying where the agent may or may not help.
Yeah, that makes sense. I guess even like when working with people, if you have 5 people doing same job but at scale, you kind of finding that every one of them doing it slightly different, whether it's HR or software engineer or whoever, right?
Yeah. And I'll be honest, like I can obviously say, oh, everyone's not doing great. I'll take that my responsibility on myself in our own company.
Mm-hmm.
It is really hard to continuously push everybody to build SOPs. And I'll say it like it's probably the number one thing I'm saying all the time, because we're trying to build AI native and internally. I'll say, hey, well, where's let's not talk AI agents, let's talk SOPs. Where's the SOP for this? And everyone's like, oh gosh, Jay's asking that question again. Because it's hard, right? To take the pause in your day to capture exactly step by step what you do, whether it is using a software platform like Loom or Tango, right, to capture process and procedure and screenshots. It takes a pause in your day to do that. And once you are able to do that, that's when we can start to run faster.
Yeah. So what conditions do you think need to exist in organizations so people can take this AI and just put on top of it? So I hear one SOP. Is there anything else?
Yeah, definitely diligence around SOPs and like process documentation. We're noticing a lot of critical thinking or a lack of critical thinking. So, this assumption that AI is smart enough to just figure things out. What a lot of people aren't realizing is that we have a lot of context in our heads. Even me, right? My wife and I we work together, and so this morning she's like, "How would I do this?" And the more I start to have a conversation with her, 30 minutes later, I've revealed all of this different context that I haven't even captured in the SOP. And so as her and I work together, there's this element of critical thinking of what are the questions we should be asking ourselves as team members to try to drive a bit of optimization, right? So critical thinking is another one. And then the third thing is, and we connected at Agile 2025, it's this notion of working in wonder. So being able to envision and forecast or vision cast what we want the future to look like, that's also a skill set that, when in tandem with documentation capture and when in tandem with critical thinking, those three things are what shape a really innovative, change fluent mindset.
Okay, so it's all things that have nothing to do with actual AI as a tool then. It's more of a, like, how organizations operate, right?
Yeah, you got it. And some of these are as basic as, as I think about how to teach my daughter math or counting even, so she's really young. It's that whole notion of showing your work. How are we as team members showing our work when it comes to what we do? And if we're unable to do that, oftentimes it makes it really difficult to try to pass that knowledge on, right? Most organizations are wrestling with succession planning and knowledge transfer, right? KT, knowledge exchange. It's difficult when that's not happening. And then on the working in wonder part, that's built with Lego sets, right? Like it's building things and playing and creating new things. And it has nothing to do with, to your point, artificial intelligence at all. It's our ability to imagine, which I think over time, as an adult, it took me a little bit of time to get back into that creative thinking piece, because I hadn't done it in a while. So
yeah. Yeah, okay. So let's talk about the failure and success of these initiatives with AI. And we have a lot of, well, at least I hear on LinkedIn specifically, some people showing off their adoption numbers and how great things are. But people don't like to share many failures. But maybe you, in your work that you see this, do you have some stats maybe about that, about the failures?
Totally. I'll give you 3 stats real quick. Number one, the BCG report from January 2025, that was the fact that 74% of organizations are failing to scale value with AI. Number two is fast forward 8 months to August of 2025. MIT releases their report that says that 95% of organizations are not seeing any ROI. I'm going to loop back to that one because that one's actually really fascinating the deeper you dive. And then the third stat is internally with our clients. So at the Change Fluency Co., we do a lot of AI training, AI enablement, and then we build as well. But what we've noticed, and I've been wrestling with it for about 2 to 3 years now, it's about 10%. 10% of organization, like team members and employees, are really good. They just get it. They're the ones who are creating the agents. They're the ones who are building. They actually don't need much input from me, to be honest, at all, because they're doing a lot of it. And then I would say probably about 50 to 60% of the organization on average, they're tinkering. They use ChatGPT daily. They play around with Copilot a little bit, but they're mostly using edge cases that aren't providing a lot of value. And that's where a lot of the value lies in us partnering with orgs. Because it's like, oh yeah, we use Copilot to draft emails. We use Copilot to, search things and research. All of these applications are so basic. Like, do they save time? Yeah, like a little bit. But that's not massive amounts. Like the gains that we're looking for are like 50% of my time. Can I outsource 50% of my work week to AI agents in terms of workflows so that I can spend more time with people in strategy and future focused conversations?
Yeah. I had somebody who's an engineering leader before, like a few months ago on the podcast, and he was saying that they're gaining about 30% productivity from engineering teams. And that's kind of like a huge thing for them because everybody expecting 200, 300, 500% gain, and it doesn't happen in real life. No. It's pretty much impossible at the current stage of AI. And he was explaining how 30% is actually makes sense.
Yeah, and 30% is huge, right? You start to think about, the value there. You multiply that by a salary. It's pretty good. Well, I don't know if you and I had this conversation, but the CEO of Anthropic, this is back around the time of Agile 2025 in July 2025, so about 6 months ago. He was saying at that time that like 70% of their code internally for Claude was being written by AI. And he was forecasting about a 90% growth over the next 6 months. So maybe he's there, maybe he's not, but it would be really fascinating to see how close they've gotten, especially as most of the conversation around developers is, well, AI can do a lot of writing code. It doesn't do a lot of great writing code that's readable. Right? Like that's been the struggle. It's like, oh, it kind of works, but then you start to tweak it, and I don't really understand this as a developer, and so it's really hard to parse out. It works, but I can't change it much. That's been a big complaint too. So
yeah. I saw I had a couple of people talking about vibe coding, and I saw a lot of comments in the under the videos that people complaining and engineers saying like, no, you actually understand it, it's pretty good, I use it every day, and other people saying, yeah, you're right, it kind of sucks. So you get two kind of crowds about that. And I think people, this whole vibe coding is so new, people are not really used to it yet, I guess, too much or something.
Right. Yeah. But imagine in 6 to 12 months, if for the people who have figured it out, right, and as the algorithms get better at coding and understanding what's readable or not from a human point of view, I'm sure we'll start to see that accelerate, much like we've seen the acceleration over the last 2 years.
Yeah. So let's go back to that 95% stat, because that one is really unexpected. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. So the tweet that everyone got all worked up about online was that 95% of organizations are seeing zero ROI. But what was fascinating, the more you dig into the report, is that it's actually based on 2 reasons. And if you can figure those 2 reasons out, you unlock the ROI, the 30 to 50% that you and I are talking about. And the 2 reasons were this. Number 1 was a learning gap, meaning people didn't know what they didn't know. So they didn't know how to use Copilot or Claude or ChatGPT just a little bit better. And then number 2 was integration in your workflows, in your daily workflows, meaning I don't learn and I don't integrate. And if I haven't done any of those 2 things, of course, I'm not going to see any ROI. But the employees who figured it out were who did the learning, taught themselves, watched stuff on YouTube. Maybe they had some sort of enablement workshop with us, right? And then started to integrate it themselves. And here's where those 3 pieces come full circle in our conversation, right? Are you process mapping everything? Are you then critically thinking about what the future could look like? And in tandem, are you working in wonder to see, okay, well, if this is my current state, what would it look like if I started to remove pieces of me out of this workflow? And that's where all the value is. So
Wow.
it's been a lot of fun as we've wrestled with what works and what doesn't. Because I'll be honest, sometimes we'll go into an organization and it'll work beautifully. And other times it really fails because people haven't learned those soft skills to apply regarding application, right? So the application is where all of the value is.
Yeah, so again, it's not the technology, it's just how people apply it, how well they learn it, how this whole adoption goes through. Because many times bosses come in and they say, hey, we bought a license, go use it. And then people like get frustrated, like, oh, another tool I have to use.
Yeah. I'll share this thought with you. I was jamming with someone else this morning and, they were talking about trusting the process. And, you hear that phrase all the time, trust the process. And I push back a little bit. I say, I don't trust the process at all. What I do is I embrace the effort, right? Because all of the magic actually happens in the effort. It doesn't happen. And sometimes you have a process and it doesn't work very well. So how do we embrace effort just a little bit better? So putting in the work to drive the innovation that we want forward.
Yeah, that makes sense. So let's switch gears to agents a little bit. And so how do you, with your work, how do you usually define what an AI agent is, especially for the leaders, so it makes sense to them?
I'll be honest, we've had to lean pretty heavily on no-code agents because of the technical competency of a lot of leaders. So as you may have talked about on this podcast, I would assume, AI agents lie on a spectrum, right? There's basic like retrieval chatbot agents who can look into your documents and say, hey, let's analyze this and here's some information back. There's no code agents, which are, plug and play, drag and drop process flows to say like, if this happens, then this happens, right? So if I get an email from this person, I want you to create a new report or draft whatever and then send it out. So it's starting to take actions on your behalf, but it's a very prescribed workflow. You then start to move all the way, and that would be like Lindy.ai is probably one of the best in the world when it comes to no code AI agents. And then the more technically complex you get, you more move into like Make, N8N. There are quite a few of those where you need a bit of technical competency to understand how to build and customize these AI agents, where you can go a lot faster. So you're plugging them into APIs, to different platforms, right? You're giving them power over not just your browser, but even different platforms that you regularly log into, so that they can take actions on your behalf and independently, and then relying on human in the loop to have us verify and validate prior to executing specific actions that we might not want them to do.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's some of them are pretty like self-explanatory, pretty well defined. You plug and play, and some of them you have to mess with a little bit. That's totally understandable. And then, so once a transition happens and the organization starts what happens in the organizations when they start using more AI agents as a teammates versus just tools like ChatGPT to summarize email?
So some of it becomes really normalized, right? With these digital workflows. The best AI agents that have been deployed sometimes are not even noticeable. What do I mean by that? The experience is so seamless that sometimes you even forget that you're working with an AI agent because it's so conversational, right? Good example is within customer experience or customer success. So like processing refunds for e-commerce companies and that kind of thing, right? There are AI agents that can totally, like, I'll give you an example. I got a parking fine yesterday. I paid for parking, got a parking fine. I got back to my car and I look at it and I thought to myself, well, wait a minute, like I paid for this already. So I'm going to dispute this naturally. I go onto the parking website, say, hey, I'm here to dispute a parking notice. And I guarantee you that was not a real person responding to me. So there's the normal click-throughs of what are you doing? What's the reason? What's your license plate? What was the notice number? And those are all the standard questions. It's automated. But then in terms of the contextual understanding of whether it should be refunding me or not, or canceling my notice, taking action to execute on that, a human doesn't need to do that anymore. Right?
Yeah.
So when we have AI agents that are deployed, what it looks like is you elevate the role of the supervisor. Because in the past, you would have had 10, 100, 1,000 customer agents responding to people like me saying, I hate you, I don't have a parking ticket, it's wrong, blah, blah, blah. And now you have a supervisor who's reviewing within a case management platform all of the different cases, and most of them are going to look totally normal. And they don't even need to look at them anymore.
Right.
What it might do is start to flag, oh, hey, this is a bit of a discrepancy. Do you want to take a look at this case? Is this right or wrong? Should I be doing this action or not? And so the role of humans then has changed pretty substantially, right? So it's a more of oversight, review, yeah, that kind of thing. We see a lot of this with Salesforce being probably the biggest example in the world, where they laid off. They laid off, I want to say 30% of their customer support agents in August, because they had 1.5 million conversations with human agents, 1.5 million conversations with AI agents, and the net promoter score was higher with AI agents. And so Mark Benioff says, well, the customers like AI agents better, so why don't we just go with them? And so he laid off a third of his workforce, and everyone got really upset about that. But then with the remainder of the people that were there, their roles got elevated, they got promoted, they got paid more, because the work that they were doing was higher and the productivity was higher.
Yeah, cases like this upset a lot of people, but at the same time, I'm a big believer that people should be upgrading skills as we go. Nobody's saying that drop everything and go to the university or something, but gradually everybody have to think about it, that this may happen to me also sometime soon, and start like expanding your knowledge, expanding your skills and things like that.
You know who probably didn't get fired or laid off? You know who probably didn't get fired? The person on the team, I speak generally, right? The person on the team who thought to themselves, like, okay, I see the writing on the wall. How do I learn this platform that they're rolling out with AI agents? How do I learn about that better? And I guarantee you, if their attitude was great and they were talking about how involved they are and they had visibility in front of their leadership team of, hey, I'm in, I'm here for it, they're probably not on the chopping block, right? They're probably the ones that are getting drawn up and pulled up to the next level of ranks. So anyway, sorry for cutting you off, but I was just curious.
No, that's a good point, because that's like kind of matching what I'm saying. Yes, and what I wanted to ask you is, from organizational standpoint, if they see that they're going to be adapting all these AI tools and things like that, in terms of training and upskilling the workforce, what should be they doing with this, and what they're actually doing in organizations?
Now is the time. We see this across any transformation, right? Across the last 10 years, 15 years, right? With digital transformations, every leadership team, VPs, C-suites, they're always asking the question, who wants to be a champion? Right? Like, we've all heard that question before. And the broad sentiment across, some of us eager keeners are always putting up our hands saying, like, yeah, me. It is now time for us to be those eager keeners. Right? Like, to be part of the change rather than be resisting it. Because the ones who are resisting it, they might not be around anymore. But the ones who are like putting up their hand to say, hey, like, I love what we're doing. I don't know what the future holds, but I want to be part of it. Attitude is carrying them so much of the way forward, which is such a simple yet profound realization.
Do you also see, the reason I'm asking this is because I even went to like Coursera, for example, looking for courses in AI specifically. And most of them, really what they teach is tools. Like, this is Gemini, this is how you use it, log in, go here, click there, these are the settings. So they don't teach you really how to use the tool. I mean, they don't how to think about it and how to apply it to your job and all the use cases and things like that. Why do you think this happens? Do you think we will shift it sometime soon?
It's really hard, right? I speak from experience, shamefully almost. My business partner and I are Rich. As part of the Change Fluency Co., we tried to launch a digital learning experience. And as we were wrestling with it, we found that most clients, the ask was exactly what you're telling me. The ask was, how do I use Copilot a little bit better? Where do I click, right? How do I build an AI agent in Copilot? How do I use ChatGPT a little bit? What prompts should I drop in? It was all about how to use the tools. And one of the reasons we got really stuck was in a year, that's going to be obsolete. Nobody, once I know how to, build an AI agent in Copilot, great. It'll catch up pretty soon, and I'm assuming it'll be pretty seamless in a year from now. And so how do we not build training that is obsolete 1 year from now? A lot of it came back to the soft skills that we keep on coming back to. How do I teach someone how to critically think? How do I teach someone how to work in wonder? How do I teach someone how to map processes a little bit better? And it's not intuitive, right? It's not something that people are thinking to themselves, wow, this is so easy. What have you, I'd be curious from your point of view, what have you seen work really well when it comes to teaching people how to imagine and innovate?
I am a big fan of learning on the job. Is basically when when we have a new hire or somebody's transition from one position to another, we actually almost shadowing somebody who's really experienced in it and observing how experienced person does it day to day. It doesn't matter what it is. It's maybe using Excel, it's maybe running a meeting, it's maybe writing a code, whatever the task is. Because I think when you go to school or course or anything, they give you this very small, narrow example of how to do certain task, and that's it. It doesn't go they don't expand it to more use cases, to different things and things like that. So I think that's kind of the missing gap, at least from my personal experience. Every time I take a course, that's what I learn, just that little thing and nothing else.
Yeah. Learning on the job is huge, right? We often say, how do we teach the tedious? How do we teach the tedious so that we can unload the load, right? If I don't teach the tedious steps, the entry level work, the adding things in Excel, the drafting policies, if someone doesn't know the very foundational basics of their job, it's impossible for them to go beyond that into something that's a little bit more senior. But if I onboard someone, maybe the first 3 to 6 months, the painful part of their job and teaching the tedious there, then I can unload the load over time to say, okay, well, hey, by the way, guess what? We actually already delegated most of this work, but at least now you know what the process is. We found this a lot with accounting, actually, with junior accountants, because they need to know how to balance books, reconcile invoices before they can start to run faster and review.
Yeah. I think that's very important too. Yeah, I can see that. And then with actual AI and tools, what do you think which skills do you think are the most important for people to start learning? Just in general, I guess.
I don't think it would hurt for people to learn a bit of coding language just to understand what they're reading. I think about Lovable and picking up so much steam over the past year.
Yeah.
I love Lovable, right? The ability to portray a user design really quickly, an MVP really quickly. The gap then comes from an MVP of what a UX might look like to say, okay, let's make it working. And that bridge there requires a bit of technical competency. So one minor skill might be just to understand a little bit of coding language. I'd probably start there in terms of recommendations.
I see. Okay. And then you also mentioned things like critical thinking and design thinking. What do you think the role of those type mentalities or approaches, if you will, with the AI tools?
Yeah, design thinking is huge. It's no longer just for, UX designers or researchers anymore. Design thinking is something that can apply to any role, totally, right? And this allows you to look at the current state, design a future state, and try to bridge the two, right? So we've seen a huge uptick there as well. And then I think this thing around influence. How do we learn? We haven't talked about this at all today, but how do we influence through storytelling? And that's a skill that I think everyone should be picking up when it comes to, as more and more technical skills get offloaded and delegated to AI. We as humans have traditionally always leaned on being able to influence each other. And so can I learn that skill better to bring people along the journey of whatever our initiative is, what I'm trying to achieve for the organization, et cetera? But influence through storytelling is probably another huge gap right now.
Yeah, it's more like you mentioned before. It's more of a soft skill. It's like analogy for me is like factories a couple hundred years ago, right? People used to make everything by hand, like shoes and clothes and everything. And then we have factories who are tools who actually, or that replaced people, and people had to just supervise and fix machines to be able to mass produce those goods. Same thing we see now with digital age. We first had computers, personal computers, everybody typing their Excel sheet. Now it's all automated by AI, and all people have to do is just to supervise and fix those bots who will do all these automations. So I kind of think about it that way. And every time I suggest engineers, I'm a project manager, I work with engineers every day, and I suggest to them, like, guys, I want you to do this presentation to learn this skill, or I want to do this for you. They always push back, and they, not always, but sometimes they push back and they say, no, I don't want to do this. I don't really need that. So,
which is fascinating, right? Like if they're doing presentations, you're bringing up a great point of how do we develop executive presence, right? How do we showcase things, not just through storytelling maybe, but also through data visualization, right?
Yeah.
How do we?
And the thing is that they do this. They do this already, right? For their projects that they're working on. They do diagrams, they do images, they do whiteboard sessions and things like that. But then as soon as you ask them to stand, to like show up in front of people and explain, they're like, no, I'm not doing that.
Oh, I'm good. Yeah. And that's where most of the opportunity is, right? Because, we as humans are people of perception, and perception frames reality. And so if I'm speaking about something all the time, right, part of the reason I end up on so many stages speaking about AI, even though I'm not an AI expert, by the way, I'm a change expert, right, is because everyone has seen me speak about AI so much, they're like, oh, of course you're great at it. And the truth is my background is in behavioral change and psychology. And it's the whole adoption piece of if I see any change, any disruption, how do I partner with it to create the future? AI just so happens to be that change this year and the last 2 years.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe 5 years, 10 years from now, it will be something else. But still the same like psychological thing, behavioral thing will exist. So AI probably is not going to replace your job.
Yeah. And we haven't talked about this. I'll share one thought with you. I think that the number one skill set, the number one super skill for 2031, 5 years from now and beyond, is going to be change fluency, right? So the adaptive capacity of any individual to translate a challenge or a disruption or a change into opportunity, right? How do I have that mindset? That is going to be a super skill that will take our leaders into the 2030s and beyond.
Yeah, they should start teaching this in schools to prepare people for this. In schools, they just give you hard skills and off you go. They don't even teach you how to get a job, which is really interesting.
And now we have a ChatGPT AI coach that can do that, right? So it's definitely a fascinating time.
Yeah. And so the next question I have is, with all this AI being our teammates and helping us to do the work, how do we actually say that humans are doing good job at their work? Because they're gonna have like a little bit less outcomes, but more supervision.
Yep. It's so fascinating, right? How much credit? Here's how I'm interpreting your question, right? How much credit can humans take for their productivity in terms of good work versus them partnered with AI? Have you heard of a professor named Ethan Mollick?
Yes.
out of Wharton. He wrote last year about secret cyborgs that were popping up across organizations. So these are people, team members, just like me and you, who don't tell people that they're using AI. And they're secret cyborgs because there was this perception that their productivity was not their own. I actually think it's more important now than ever before to be telling people about how you're leveraging this, because that is what you should be taking credit for nowadays, because so that you can be seen as someone who is innovative, who is with the times, who is testing and experimenting and tinkering.
Yeah, that's again analogy with like computers and tools without artificial intelligence. Same thing, right? You could count numbers in paper all day long, but with Excel spreadsheet, it does to you in minutes. Same thing here. Now that it explains it. That makes sense.
And you're positioned as a leader that way, right? Where it's like, oh, wow, Vit uses the stuff. Why don't we go talk to Vit about, everything that he's doing to innovate our processes and our workflows?
Yeah.
That builds a reputation for yourself.
So in the nearest future, what kind of employee do you think will thrive in this AI environments?
The ones who can ask the right questions. I'm prepping for an event next week, and I'm starting to bring up the notion of AI influencers and how Emily Pellegrini, who's this fake AI influencer model, has 500,000 followers, and I have not even close to that. And that seeing something like that allows me to ask questions that are pretty basic right off the bat, like who can I trust, or what can I trust? And sometimes basic questions like that are almost like the wrong way to start, because if I'm asking the wrong questions, I get stuck in going down a path in a conversation of, well, can I trust this or not? Whereas I think the perfect employees moving forward are actually consistently going to be asking questions that are tied to this sentiment, which is this: how can we leverage the latest in technology to bring our best work to life? And any segment off of that, any tangent off of that, right? But it's possibility creating, right? So what do we have today, and how do we make it better with what we have in front of us? And any employee can do that, right? But by asking that question, it allows you to focus on the future as opposed to hamper on the present.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. And another question I have for you is, if you can leave listeners right now with just one thing that they can do with AI to get better at their work, what would that be?
Ooh, I would, especially if you do like the same reports, if you build the same reports every week, or you do something that's very repetitive, I would look to consolidate all the documents related to that into a knowledge base in one SharePoint folder or Google Drive folder. And I would look to experiment with agents as much as possible to say, hey, can you just create this for me so that I don't have to do it? I would play around with that. So yeah, to answer your question, run an experiment that allows me to lean into contextually rich information. So my job, using documents, Excel files, etc., PDFs, whatever you use the most on a daily basis, and start to play around with, how do I have an AI agent partner with me to make my job a little bit easier?
Yeah, I have to do something about this. I have this reports that I use for the teams and how well we execute things. And it does some automation, but it could be probably taken into more, helping with AI, I guess. That's interesting. You just gave me some good idea for tomorrow.
Amazing. Yeah. Because, well, you run sprints probably, right, with your teams. And so historically, you have all the data in your dashboard. And so if you can plug something in there, you can say, hey, sprint over sprint, here's how we're looking. And anyway.
Right. Okay. Well, okay, that's great. Thanks for sharing all your knowledge and information. And at the end, I usually ask 3 innovation questions, all my guests. And the answer can be short or long, however you want. I just like your opinion on these things. And the first question is, how do you define innovation in a few words?
It's the one that I've wrestled with the longest, but I love. I would say innovation is the integration of two or more unrelated ideas in a way that you're able to connect those together in an unexpected way. Right? So can I take two things from completely different worlds, bring them together, and that's innovation, right? That's how we see most of the things. Basic example that I'm thinking of right now, I'm wearing glasses right now, and I've got my smartphone right next to me. We saw innovation happen as over the last few years, they've wrestled with Google Glasses and all that.
Yeah.
But Meta and Ray-Ban now with the Wayfair display have AI augmented glasses, right? And that's one of the most beautiful examples of innovation where they're two unexpected things brought together to say, hey, how do we put our phone into our glasses? Whether you like that idea or not, that's innovation. It's unexpected.
Yeah, okay, makes sense. So the second question is, which one innovation throughout the history you think changed the world the most?
I'm going to double tap on the Ray-Ban Meta Wayfair displays. Where I hope they go. I think this will transform human connection. Why do I think that is the more we see translation happen in real time. So for example, my wife, her parents are Cantonese. They don't speak English. And regardless of all the conversations we've had over the past few years, right, about technology, I think it would be the coolest thing to just sit at dinner and understand what was happening at the dinner table. Yes, I could go learn Cantonese, right? But a technology like this will allow us to connect with anyone. So the more languages that get onboarded, I think they have like 30 now, we'll be able to converse very naturally, right? Which is super sci-fi-esque. But that removes all barriers to human connection. So I'm really excited about being able to translate any language immediately, real time, and have a conversation.
Okay, yeah, I would also use something like that myself. So that's pretty cool. In fact, I think in YouTube already they have this like about 30 languages or so. It's automatically transcribing, translating. And so my native language is Russian. So if I go to YouTube and I watch for something, look for something, they actually translate now Russian podcast into English because I log in from US, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of messed up, but you know, they will figure it out.
Right. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so my third question is, which one of the things that we use today, it could be technology, software, some techie thing, gadget, we will be laughing at 10 years from now?
Smartphones. I see the writing on the wall. I think as we get better at augmented displays and visual displays, we're just going to get so much more used to that. And we've seen it, right? You see technology trickle in slowly over time, like with augmented displays in cars. 5 years ago, it would have blown my mind that there was directions on when to turn left or right on my windshield. And now it's a daily piece of my life where I'm like, of course they would do that. And so the more things get augmented on displays around us, the more I think we'll need our phones just a little bit less. Because imagine, right, if I was to text you and I could just say on my glasses as I'm walking my dog, like double tap and say, hey, text Vit, right? Say, hey, what's going on today? I can audio converse and I don't need to touch anything. So we'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see.
That's a good one. I actually also feel that way because I found myself, I have a smartphone. It's a pretty expensive device, and all I use it for is like checking emails and apps and things like that. I rarely use it for the phone function. Only maybe once in a while when I need an appointment to my dentist or something like that. That they don't have a good website to schedule appointments. Something like that. It's very interesting.
They'll catch up soon, hopefully. We'll see.
Yeah. All right, Jay, thank you very much for your time today. It's been a pleasure and a lot of knowledge from you. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for having me. Stay in touch.
I hope this conversation gave you fresh ideas and inspiration. If so, Please share it with your friends and colleagues. Don't forget to follow, subscribe, and leave a quick comment. It helps more people discover this episode. See you next time.